hot.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with the Dog. You make me laugh.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I really don't think so. Oh, rocking out today. The band is like on cocaine and somebody found in a storage cubby or something. Calm down, guys. Playing a little too loud. All the cops on us again. Oh yeah, I gotta blast these headphones because my ears are just like dead as can be today. Good morning, folks. It is Thursday, July 6th, 2023. I am all out of whack. They put a holiday on a Tuesday. Then Wednesday feels like Monday. This feels like Tuesday. It's Thursday. I'm just confused all over. I'm all over the map. Today, I'm really excited. Katie Hannigan's going to be my guest. Katie's on my list of favorites now in comedy. You know, it's impossible. You see this all the time. People put out lists or ask for lists. Give me a top 10 comedians. You can't come up with top 10 because you're going to leave somebody really great out. Lots of great people out. So my list is ever changing. So I keep it like a top 1,000 or whatever. But my list of favorite comedians is growing all the time. I know I very rarely take anybody off the list. But today I'm really excited to be talking to somebody who is on my list, and that is Katie Hannigan. We also have Donna Shannon. Slightly Irrelevant Reviews this morning, and then Robert Taylor should be joining us if he can figure out the way to work his key to the back door on his own. And if not, I'll probably have to send him a link, but we're going to see if he can do that. I screwed up something in the coffee really bad today. I think I'm probably going to have to call an audible and go to Donna Shannon's piece early so I can get a fresh cup of coffee, because this is not the cold coffee that I love and expect every morning. Something is weird in it. And I think I might have just screwed up the recipe a little bit. Happens. It happens. Anyway, yesterday, the news was, and still people going crazy over cocaine being found in the White House. Where the White House tours began, it was found in a cubby. First of all, I want to know, nobody loses fucking cocaine. Like, you can talk about cocaine addicts all you want, coke heads. Nobody loses it. That was left there intentionally. Nobody loses their coke. Pot, yes, people lose pot. Heroin, sure. It's nobody loses cocaine. Cocaine is the one drug that never gets lost. It was put there on purpose. Now, here's the deal. Somebody in law enforcement said it's not likely that the perpetrator or whoever owned that cocaine will ever be found. Hello? The Secret Service isn't up to standard mall cop technique. I promise you. You give me a list of people who had access to the White House. It couldn't have been that many. I mean, how many people take a tour of the White House every day? 1,000? I don't know, maybe more than that, or who knows? I gotta look that up. I don't know how many people actually take the tour, but I can't imagine it's more than a couple of thousand top. You give me a list of those people, we'll run down their history, we'll look at their photos, we'll check them out. I'll tell you who owned the cocaine. It's not that hard. A standard mall cop could figure it out. The Secret Service can't figure out which of those people who had access at that time is the cokehead. I'm thinking of a new kind of segment on the show find the cokehead, and we'll just get pictures. We'll get a picture of a cokehead, and then pictures of random people in there. I guarantee my chat room will be able to pick out the cokehead, if not 100% of the time, 99.99999% of the time. Not like cokeheads just can hide. They stand out. Now the writer's making like crazy, going crazy over this, like it's the end of the world. And one of the Fox News morning douchebags saying, "Well, it could be fentanyl in there, and we don't know. And what is it? Well, so what? Nobody's doing it. And what difference does it make if there's fentanyl in it? It was found by cops. Now, maybe the cops are doing it. That's not. It wouldn't be the first time, believe me. But nobody's going to die from it, and it's just ridiculous. Now, the idea that it might have been Joe Biden's or Hunter Biden's. I don't think either one of them were in the White House yesterday, so that would be a difficult thing. They had somebody bring their cocaine and put it in a tourist storage tubby. It's just ridiculous, man. But again, show me the list of people who had access, and I will definitely point out the cokehead. It's not that hard. And if the Secret Service can't do that, we need to get better cops on the Secret Service. That's just, come on. We got big news for the Rockin' 45s gig tomorrow night. Legit rock star will be sitting in with us for the entire 3.5-hour set that we will be doing tomorrow night at Catch, Venetian Shores in Lindenhurst. Be a great time. Weather's going to be great on the beach. Be lots and lots of people, and the boat people will be there, and just a wild, fun summer good time. We also will be kind of celebrating Mikey's birthday. Mikey's birthday isn't until the 11th, which I believe is Tuesday, but we're not doing a gig on Tuesday, so we'll be celebrating Mikey's birthday tomorrow night, and that should be a good one. If you're on Long Island, please do come out and be part of the show. And I promise you, it'll be one to remember. I gotta remember to charge up all the video cameras and get ready to make sure we have some of this documented for tomorrow. Anyway, I'm excited about that. Got some hate mail as usual on my Joe Rogan. I took that snippet of where I was pointing out how Rogan got fooled by the internet again yesterday. I put that as a short clip on the internet, and it hasn't gotten a whole lot of views, but it sure has generated quite a bit of hate mail. Rogan's cult is very protective of him. You cannot criticize him in any way. And I did go a little bit over the top. I put a dunce cap on his head, but he falls for this stuff all the time. It's not like, if you remember the one where he fell for the boxing match where it said father beats up son, and he was going off on it, and then his boy Jamie pointed out that that's not his father. It's just a legitimate old guy versus young guy boxing match, and the guy was winning. You don't stop until the ref says stop. And he said, and Rogan went, "Well, why did they lie? Why did they lie? It's on the fucking internet. That's why they lied." Why did they lie? Such a naive, for clicks. That's why. They lied for clicks. That's why people make up bullshit titles and thumbnails and nonsense like that on videos just to get clicks. Okay, Joe? I'm glad we could work that out, and you know what it's all about. Anyway, as I mentioned, I do need to kind of refresh the coffee, so I'm going to start with Donna Shannon's piece. Right now, I think, is a good time to do it. Give me a couple of minutes. This is not a long piece. Please bear with me. I will be back shortly. I just got to get some good coffee, folks. I mean, that's the way it is.
Hey, it's Donna Shannon again with slightly irrelevant reviews. And today I'm going to talk about The Secret Life of Pets. Yeah, this was released in 2016. Yes, it's an animated movie for kids. I admit it, I watch animated kid movies and TV shows all the time. My kids are grown. I have a grandson who's almost 12. But no, I was watching this on my own. But Secret Life of Pets, couple of weird things I noticed about it. First of all, it stars Louis C.K. as a dog, so he was a dog on screen before we all found out what a dog he was off screen too. But this movie didn't get canceled because of that. Also, it's got Kevin Hart as this. I think he was just really extra in this one. He's like this crazy ass white Snowball is his name. He's a rabbit. And yeah, I just found the whole Snowball character way over the top and ridiculous. But here's the thing about it. Overall, I do like this movie. I've watched it multiple times. But I think it kind of points out that I've got something of an evil streak. And specifically, here is why. I also watch a lot of horror movies. Like, probably more than would be healthy. But yeah, so I'm used to a lot of murder and mayhem and all the rest of this. And I've noticed this tendency of me, if I'm watching something that's like a little bit too wholesome, I'm like gonna go, okay, when are they gonna start killing people? Oh, hey, I've been known to watch horror movies and go, oh, I would have done stuff that is so much worse and so much more messed up. I can't believe they didn't do this. They totally could have, just pulled all the skin off his flesh. Why didn't they show that? So yes, I have issues and I have problems. So specifically, there's this one scene in the movie that really drove home that I'm probably evil. So at one point, the two dogs are lost in the city. Max and Duke is the other big dog. And of course, they're starving. They don't have any food. So they get a whiff of a hot dog factory in there. And they go in and they start eating all the hot dogs. And they have a acid fueled trip from meat overload for all the hot dogs. So we've got a wonderful hot dog showdown with songs and dancing and just hot dogs everywhere. More hot dogs than you could shake a stick at. But here was the evil part. After they have their meat orgy, they're riding through one of the conveyor belts in the factory, and they're just sitting amongst all the hot dogs and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, these dogs are going to get chopped up and turned into hot dogs. That doesn't happen, by the way. It is a kid's movie. The dogs do not get turned into hot dogs. The worst thing that happens is the dog catcher shows up and tries to catch him. But yeah, it's what the hell's wrong with me that honestly, my first thought is, when are these dogs going to die? How are they going to escape all the industrial meat slicers and meat grinders? Are they going to get their fur pulled off before they go through all the equipment? And yeah, obviously there are things that are very, very wrong with me. But overall, the movie's good. It's a lot more wholesome than I am. So you can watch it with your kids, or you can get really high and watch it by yourself, and then have a much more interesting experience. Last note on it, though, I am not completely heartless. I feel all the emotions. And at the end, even though I have watched this movie probably way more times than I should care to admit, at the very end, when the humans come home and all the pets are standing by the door and they're greeting everybody and they're wagging their tails and all the rest of this, yes, I still get teary-eyed. It is just very cute and very touching. So there you go. Have your Kleenex ready for at the end. You're not going to be crying because any dogs died. It's just a little bit too sweet and on the wholesome side. So there you go. This has been Donna Shannon, Slightly Irrelevant Reviews. And if you like what I'm talking about, please be sure to check out my own podcast, Donna Shannon's Coyote Tales, and you'll find out just the rest of my sick issues. Thanks.
Thank you, Donna. Please do check out Coyote Tales podcast. Thank you, Donna. We like to support all the contributors here on the program, and make sure you give her a follow. She's on Twitter at Donna Shannon. And the coffee I just got, I have not checked it out. Something is wrong. Somebody is trying to poison my coffee this morning. Just on a brief note, my guest is in the back green room right now, and I don't want to keep her waiting, but a brief note on what's going on at Sticks and Stones Comedy out in Southampton. On July 17th, we're going to be having Eddie Brill doing. Eddie Brill was handpicked by David Letterman to be his comedian casting person, and he was a warm-up guy for the audience for a lot of years, but also picked all the comedians that went on Late Night with David Letterman, so he knows his way around. He's doing a comedy workshop at the Southampton location of Sticks and Stones Comedy Club. It's actually downstairs at the event space in the library. It's free, absolutely free. And then the next night on the 18th, Eddie will be headlining at Sticks and Stones. If you're on Long Island, please support Sticks and Stones Comedy Club. It's good to have comedy clubs opening rather than closing. We're so used to having them close. Anyway, time to get the show rolling here. Katie Hannigan is on my list of favorite comedians now, and as we talked about this whole idea of who's your favorite comedians, and people give me a top 10. Impossible. List is always growing, but really impressed with her. She is a stand-up comic, actor, writer. Her stand-up has been featured on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Comedy Central, Just for Laughs, New Faces. I'm Old Faces. The Late Late Show with James Corden and MTV. Her debut album, Feeling of Emptiness, was named 10 Best of 2022 by the Interrobang. Katie performs nightly in New York City at the at the Comedy Cellar, New York Comedy Club, and Gotham Comedy Club. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in the aforementioned Katie Hannigan. Katie, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Good morning. Good morning to all.
You have good coffee, I can tell.
And this is an okay coffee. This is my pre-coffee coffee. So this is the one to get me out the door to get to Dunkin', which is where I'll be going next.
I think my wife is trying to poison me or something. I got bad coffee this morning.
Well, you know what's a wife to do?
That's right. No, I appreciate it. If I were her, I'd poison me long ago. Anyway, I have to tell you, you have a striking resemblance to my stepdaughter. And when I first found out about you, when I first discovered you, it was online because I don't have television. And I thought I saw her and I saw you, but I thought it was her. And I said, "Oh my God, what have we done? She's a stand-up comic. This is all my fault. How can I make it right?"
Well, I'd love to meet her.
Well, maybe sometime. That would be great. Now, but then I heard your voice and I said, "Oh, thank God, it's somebody else's stepdaughter. Oh, somebody else's daughter. That's fine." Anyway, but it's been a really good experience in getting to follow you, and now I'm like addicted to all your shorts. I got to get into. You perform at 3 clubs, or all 3 clubs every night in New York City?
No, I'm out and about every night. So I do the clubs. I also do other clubs than the 3 listed as well. I perform at West Side. I perform at, there's tons of new little teeny tiny comedy clubs that are opening here all the time. I do bar shows, I'm on the road. So before the pandemic, I did perform every night. And now, I like to take a couple nights off.
Okay. Now, is there a bright side to post-pandemic comedy in New York City? Has anything improved because of it?
I'm not sure that anything's improved. I mean, the whole landscape has totally shifted because a lot of people are, doing different videos online, and they're able to access a new audience in that way. So there's a lot more of, taped performance aspect, recorded performance. than there has been before. So, but since I started stand up in 2010, and everything's totally different now, except for the actual act of performing stand up, I think.
Right. Because during the pandemic, a lot of people were saying in downtimes like this, it always gives way to a creative boom afterwards. And I'm waiting for the boom. I mean, we do have one comedy club, Sticks and Stones, out here on the island that is opened up, which is different than closings. It's a positive sign there. But I'm seeing, and Jeffrey Gurian told me clubs in New York are completely packed every night of the week. And I was like, why am I getting emails every day for free tickets to all these places? If that's true, I mean, so it's kind of mixed messages, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out, is there a boom happening, and can we look forward to some really new things and new opportunities for people? You
I
guys?
mean, it's all online. I think it's all online. So what's kind of happening now is that people who weren't able to perform were going online and developing an audience that way. So those people can go and, they are totally independent of the comedy clubs. So they can go perform in a coffee shop for 100 people and sell out and just go from town to town. And so it is kind of interesting the way that it's definitely a creative boom in that regard. Although I don't know that it's, necessarily for the comedy clubs.
Okay. Yeah, because seem to be a lot of new opportunities for performances out there in very strange places, like I don't know, laundromats. People are doing comedy shows, especially here on Long Island. I don't know if it's like this in Manhattan, but people are doing comedy shows anywhere they can plug in a microphone. It's
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
just,
We
yeah.
will do that. We're like roaches. We will thrive in any environment.
So why am I lucky enough to get you in the morning? Because I have this idea that comedians like to sleep late, and it's always the biggest problem is I'll do it at 11:30. Well, I'm off the air at 11:30. Are you generally a morning person? Have you always been a morning person?
I am tired right now, I will say, but we have been having the exterior facade of our building renovated for about 3 months. So every day we were waking up at 8 to the sound of like someone banging on the side of the building. So that's kind of turned me into an early riser. I just at 8 o'clock my eyes pop open, and they're actually finished now, thank God. But I do enjoy getting up early. I love to get up. Like, I know people say people don't believe me. They say this is insane, but I love like an early morning flight, getting to the airport, even like 7 a.m. There's something exciting about it to me.
And it's probably the least stressful time to fly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So if I'm going to take a flight, and I'm not going to take a flight anywhere, it would be early in the morning. I would definitely want to do that. Now, in New York City, compared to other places that you might perform at, like other cities, far more touristy, right? Or maybe nothing like Vegas, but I mean, as far as the crowds in the comedy clubs are not necessarily New Yorkers.
Yes, there is a lot. I mean, it does depend on, which clubs you go to. Like I work a couple clubs on the Upper West Side. I was saying like Stand Up New York or West Side Comedy Club. Those are a lot of local people at those shows. But yeah, definitely downtown, it is a lot of people who are coming out to New York, and doing a comedy show is on their big list of things to do. But I love it. I was a tour guide for several years, a private tour guide. So I always try to welcome people to New York, because I know it can be kind of overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time.
Wow. So do you ever alter your set based on the sensibilities of the tourists in the room?
No, I mean, I do crowd work sometimes, so I guess I would alter it in that way. Or, of course, I will alter it if I'm bombing. I will try to go in a different direction. But no, I usually kind of stick to the plan of the material that I'm developing, which is kind of for a certain audience.
You mentioned bombing, and none of you don't post any of that, but there are comedians who do, and the shorts people are, and I love that. I mean, I had somebody call me 2 days ago talking about a comedian, and they posted a thing of them really struggling on stage, and he said, "Man, that was terrible." I said, "No, he did that on purpose. It's kind of." like laughing at me, laughing at myself type of thing. But he was like, I can't believe he put that up. That's why he put that up. You don't
Mhm.
do that. Do you feel like there's any benefit in that at all?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think there's nothing funnier than your friend bombing on stage, you know? I think it's hilarious. I unfortunately, well, fortunately and unfortunately, I really don't bomb too often. Sometimes I'll do a new joke that doesn't do well, but I'm usually able to get out of a hole. So I don't tape every set. And usually, if I'm at a club where the set is being taped, I'm on my best behavior to do well so I can continue working at that club.
Oh, okay. So the reels that I see it because I don't know. Once I start watching you, it's like Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Just says he likes her. Show him everything she's ever done. Uh,
Mhm.
you those are done by the club, or do you bring in? You don't bring in your own like camera person or something?
No, no, I don't do that. So most of the clubs and small rooms here now do tape your set for you, and they will give it to you if you request it, or some will just give it to you. They'll just send it right to you. So I do. I will say I do all my own video editing, which I'm very proud of.
Very
And that
cool.
was, yeah, it takes kind of a long time to learn, and it's scary, but I'm glad that I did it.
That's interesting because they have so many, and I think by next year, all you'll have to do is say the words, edit this, cut this up into shorts for me, and AI will do it all for you.
Right, right.
Your comedy is very relatable. It's basically about your life and the things that we all go through, and that's a like a common thing you have to kind of write about and joke about what some people feel like they have to be edgy, and the word edgy I think is overused. Do you feel any compulsion to kind of I don't know, up the shock value to get attention?
No, I mean, I actually, believe it or not, some of my stuff is considered edgy, even though I wouldn't consider it edgy. But, I post things online like, something that I think is just having an opinion seems to really rub people the wrong way. Just having like a, strong opinion. Like I said, oh, maybe I won't have kids. What if I have to spend the rest of my life having fun,
Right.
and that to people, I couldn't believe that it blew up. So many people were offended and upset by it. So I think just kind of by existing and being true to yourself, you are being edgy, because
Yeah,
who
I
thinks nothing, right?
I can definitely relate to that, but I would not see that wouldn't surprise me because I not that I try to follow everything, all these opinions that people have, but I have noticed this whole backlash against people who don't have kids. And just yesterday online, somebody was saying people who don't have kids shouldn't get or shouldn't have a right to vote because they're not contributing to society. They have no stake in the future. And like, well, that's awfully cold.
I mean, I think you need a hobby in your life at that point. I think you need to
Yes.
direct your energy into, some kind of creative pursuit.
Right. Yesterday, and I believe, and if I'm wrong about this, correct me, but I believe you are kind of passionate about, or at least interested in, the subject of climate change. Now, are you? Am I correct in that?
Yes, I've done some, I call it work in the climate space. That's the most millennial way I can phrase it. I've done a few different projects where I've worked with, for example, I was recently working with students in environmental studies at the University of Boulder, Colorado, and just working on imparting information about climate change to people in a way that's non-threatening and doesn't make them want to fight you, and then in conjunction with that, I'm also interested in just living a responsible life as a person.
Right. Well, I support that idea, and I've been trying to kind of make it a civil conversation for 15 years,
Mhm.
and it doesn't seem to be working. And the problem is we have people who just refuse to recognize that it's even happening rather than making the debate about what can we do about it. Is there anything we could do about it? That's a legitimate debate to have. Like, is there anything we can do to stop it, slow it? Is it too late for that? But to say it's not happening is like to tell you it's night when it's day. It's just like people just are refusing to
I
accept the
know. And you
reality.
can just go crazy. You can make yourself crazy with those kind of things. But, my personal belief is that if somebody is not willing to, if they're not open to new information, then it's not my responsibility to change them. I'm really more like looking for people who are interested in receiving new information. And those are the people that I'm working to cultivate a connection with. And, it's the same, I think, with so many other liberal topics in today's age. If you've made a choice and you're sticking with it and you are just closed off to anything new, there's nothing I can do. And then I'm not really interested in trying to reach you.
Yeah. Well, I think at some point we have to at least get to some kind of consensus that we need to take action. And that's why I would want to kind of try to get some people to accept that it's a reality,
Mm-hmm.
not something we need to fight over. And I do have people, and for whatever reason, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's just people who just don't know any better and they're just cheerleaders for whatever side they're on
Mm-hmm.
and don't even think about it critically.
Yeah.
But where we are now, are you a native New Yorker?
No, I'm from Indianapolis originally.
And how long you been in New York?
15 years. I moved in 2008. Oh, wait.
Oh,
Yep.
so you were a young adult, or we still with your parents?
I had just graduated college. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Was this always part of your idea for yourself? Like when you were going to college, did you think of I'm going to be a stand-up comic?
Well, I went to school to perform theater. So I wanted to be involved in the arts. I wasn't quite sure. I was really involved in comedic performance. I did a lot of improvisation and a lot of kind of more just like avant-garde comedic stylings, if you will. And so I wanted to move either to New York or LA. And as it happened, a close girlfriend of mine who was a year earlier than me, she had moved here. So I came to live with her.
All right. That was a good decision, yes?
Yeah, I love it. I love it here. I love it. I mean, of course, Indiana will always be my home, but I
Yeah.
love New York.
Well, I think a lot of people have that idea, LA or New York, but I think there's a very different mindset and different career path each city will take you on. For instance, I think a lot of people who go to LA become stand-up comedians with the idea of movies and television in mind,
Mm-hmm.
and more people in New York fall in love with the actual craft of stand-up and are in it more for that experience and not always looking. Of course, everybody would love to be, Hollywood calling, yeah, we have a great movie deal for you and all that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
in New York, it seemed more people are dedicated to the craft of stand-up comedy. Do you agree with that or disagree?
I do. I mean, well, it's just by the numbers, New York is better. There's more opportunities to perform and there's closer road work, so we have the whole tri-state area. On the West Coast, everything is so much more spread out, so it's hard to hop in the car and go for like a one-nighter, for example. But I do also there's also a film and TV market here as well, so I'm involved in that too.
Of course,
So
yeah.
I'd say New York
People
was,
forget that,
yeah.
and Hollywood isn't Hollywood anymore. It's
Right.
everywhere. It's in Atlanta. It's in Miami. It's in Texas. It's everywhere. It's
Mm-hmm.
all that. But still, the idea is to go to the Comedy Store, get noticed by a movie producer, and and then
Yeah.
And I
Of
had some,
course, that's how it
yeah,
happens.
I had somebody who his brother tried stand-up comedy 5 years ago, and he asked me, why do you think Vinny gave it up? And I said he did 3 shows. He was the headliner for his first and only 3 shows. He had lots of friends, so he packed the room. The first
Mm-hmm.
time he had 700 people come to see
Oh
him.
my
The
God.
second time he had like 300 people. The third time he had 110 people or something. And I said he figured out that the life of stand-up comedy is not you go out there and perform for your friends 3 or 4 times, somebody sees you and you get your own special. It's you go to a comedy club open mic, you start with 3 minutes, and sometimes they don't let you have the first 3 minutes. You have 2 minutes and you get the light, and you do that for 10 years before anybody pays you a dime.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been actually performing stand-up since with that 15
So
years that you've been here?
I started in 2010. Yep. So it's been 13 years now, a little over 13.
Yeah. So, any advice for some of those people who who are just starting out and with stars in their eye? I'm going to be the next star. I'm going to get my special next year, and
Well, I mean, like I said, the landscape is totally different from the time when I started. I remember when I started, people would say, "You never put a tape out. Never put out your tape because people will steal your material. They'll see it when it's unfinished. You won't. It'll be on the internet for years." Which is true. I have tapes from years ago that I'm like, oh, this is still floating around, But so now everything's totally different. It's like putting out unfinished material as fast as you can, cultivating more of a personality, connecting to an audience, so there are so many things that are different. But I would say there's so many different directions that you can go in. You could do a podcast. You could just focus on stand-up. You could be creating your own sketches and videos. There's 100 different things that you could do. But I would just try to focus in on which thing you really think is the most creatively fulfilling. Focus on that, then have a backup. And when the primary thing, like if you're performing stand-up every night, when that kind of like, dries up inevitably, then have a little backup. Maybe you're doing an improv class, then you go back to the primary, then you go back to the secondary, go back and forth between the two things. So you're able to, over a long period of time, develop a long-term skill. Because now what I see, everybody's trying to do everything. Oh, I have a podcast, I have this, and now I'm doing a show, and I'm doing that. And it's like, it's all bad. Everything's all bad. You have to get better,
I think you're right, and I think there are a lot of people who are doing podcasts, and people always think, well, I'm just saying this because I don't like the competition. I've been in radio for 40 years, and I don't mind the competition. I've never, I'm not trying. People don't believe this when I say this. I'm not trying to get famous. I like sliding under the radar and dealing with my comedy and music niche of creatives that I cater to, which is a very small audience, even though it seems like there's a billion comedians out there now.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, relatively speaking, it's a very small niche. So, but so I think there are too many people podcasting who shouldn't be podcasting, or they should at least get some training in how to do an interview right, and how to, if they're doing interview styles. But there's an awful lot of these just drunken bros type of things where these guys sitting down getting drunk and talking about nothing. Like, what is the value proposition in that? What are you getting at that?
Yeah.
But you mentioned putting out videos and joke theft.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing I've been thinking about lately that's got me puzzled, because in music we've always had plagiarism thing, but musicians don't give it up. Comedians, if somebody steals your joke, and I've seen this happen a lot of times, and I'm not going to mention names because that's a whole other thing. But a comedian will do a joke, another comedian steals it, and the guy who was doing it originally gives it up as that I can't do that anymore. Somebody stole my joke. In music, it would be like, no, I'm going to keep doing this and let the world know this is my song, and sometimes sue and all that. But I think comedians are a little too quick to just surrender. Okay, you stole my joke.
Well, I mean, I think one of the main passions of somebody who's truly into comedy is like writing a great joke, So once you have written a great joke, you already kind of did it. And you could, if somebody stole your joke, you could always write a better joke that's unique to you, that you can be known for. And so it is kind of the mentality, I think, across the board of comedians. If somebody steals your joke, they're going to need it because they can't write. So they're like on their way out to begin with,
right.
Because you're not going to really thrive as a comedian if you can't really write and develop your own comedic point of view. So it's
very healthy attitude, if I do say so. But I know there's still the other side of that, where so many males especially get resentful about it, and they carry it.
Yeah.
It's not like they ever necessarily directly confront the person. They just carry around the resentment of it, and then it kind of seeps out 10 years later in the conversation, that bastard stole my joke. Like,
well, yeah, we will talk about you behind your back, of course. We're doing that anyway.
Yeah. Now, without giving any specifics away, have you had jokes stolen from you?
Well, I will say that I have had jokes that seem to be on the same topic or with a very similar premise as another comedian. And usually my experience is I'll approach the comedian and say like, or they'll approach me and say, hey, I have a joke that's the same as yours. Here's a video of me doing it. Just so you know, I think we have the same joke. Because it's totally common when, you know, it's like there are only so many jokes that you can write about student loans or having kids or like, you know, having a loft bed. And so it's really more appropriate for someone to be like, I see we have the same joke. Let's not do it on the same show. Like, no worries. And then eventually, you know, I've just worked it out of my own act. But what's really a problem for me is people taking my jokes and circulating them on the internet without any type of, you know, like I've had like tweets that have gone pretty viral, and I've had companies, huge meme accounts that have millions of followers, take the material and then just never give me any type of never tag me or anything, and then circulating their account. People are loving it. The tweet's blowing up on their account. Meanwhile, I'm struggling to reach the people with my own work that I want to build my audience. So
I've seen that happen, and I'm wondering if it is malicious, intentional, or just lack of internet ethics. I think we need a kind of class, a mandatory class on ethical behavior on the internet. Like when you're sharing stuff like that, a lot of people don't know, like that you might be infringing on somebody else's work, and that they should get recognition for it, because you know we don't necessarily think of it as something of like that has value in that sense, right?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of my stuff now because I have done an album. It's copyrighted. So now if you use my work and it's copyrighted, I can report you.
Right.
But, you know, if you're just saying something into your phone one day, it happens to be brilliant, you know, what's to stop somebody else from just saying it into their phone? But yeah, you're right. The ethics of the internet are really, really terrible, and they're all over the place. And it's just full of deranged people, I think.
Yeah, the deranged people too. There is a lot of crazy people. There's a lot of all that kind of stuff. But there's also the innocent. I just didn't know any better. I think I don't think there's. I don't know what the numbers are, but I know there are people who, when explained to them, oh, I didn't realize, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
The value, I kind of touched on it. The value of comedy, I think, as society, and I know I sound like a broken record to a lot of people who listen to this, but I think as a society, we don't fully comprehend or understand the value of comedy and humor or art, creative art in any sense, and so we belittle it, and we think of it as, well, it's not building a house. It's not, you know, it's not a doc. They're not healing people. And I do think comedy is healing and music is also healing. But I think people just get that mindset. And that's why comedians especially get taken advantage of. Musicians get taken advantage of to a high degree. But I've never seen anybody in any profession that gets taken advantage of or devalued the way comedians do. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think also there's unfortunately, because of the way the internet is structured now, anybody can kind of get on and, you know, say hateful things. You know, I think it kind of like brings to light a lot of issues that we have like in the country in terms of like if people are triggered by a woman speaking. You know, I have people get on my clips and say like, women aren't funny. I've always said it. And it's like, you know, you don't have the introspection to realize that you have a hatred for women, you know, and it's like you should have that, you know, you should be able to be like, I don't like female comedy because I'm a man and this isn't for me, but that doesn't mean that women are, you know, they have smaller brains, for example. So yeah, I do definitely agree with that. And I think that I think it's part of the appeal of people going online is that they're able to have an outlet for hateful emotions that they can't express to their boss or, you know, to their mother-in-law. And I hope that there is like a sense of ethics as we continue to like develop as a culture online, because it really sucks. You know, it's like performing in a space, of course, like I'm going to see a guy in the corner who's not laughing, but it's like, at least he's not like standing up and telling me that I'm going to die alone because I've made a joke about maybe not having kids.
Yeah. Well, let me, I don't know if this will help you at all, But that guy who's not laughing, he might find you very funny. But because I've been to shows and I've done shows, and where I said, "Man, the crowd is just not with me tonight." And then after the show, they come up and, "You were great." I'm like, "Really? How come you didn't even smile a little?"
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so, I would not. I know the feeling because I will sweat on stage if I see that, if I see somebody's not reacting and I'm working hard. I'm thinking, man, I'm just blowing it here, and I start to sweat. I feel the sweat on the back of my neck, and then
Yeah.
at the end of the show, it turns out, oh, they loved you. Well, maybe they just were low energy and not able to display it that night. You get all. I wouldn't assume that that guy sitting there doesn't think you're
Yeah.
funny.
Well, it's also okay with me if he doesn't, because comedy, my specific stand up, I'm not making it for everybody. And it's certainly not for a guy who kind of doesn't like women, already. So
Right.
it's okay, I think, to not like stand up because it is very objective in the same way that painting is subjective.
Yeah,
That's the wrong
of
one.
course. Comedy is all subjective. Music is
Yeah.
subjective. Art, all
Yeah.
art is subjective.
We can't
Um,
all love Tori Amos. Okay.
okay, all right. You know what? Man, you picked one from the past. I haven't seen her performing anywhere or doing anything recently. But I'll go down the Tori Amos road again today. Um, Women in comedy. Somebody, I don't know if it was Jeffrey Gorian the other day, maybe it was JP Leonard talking about um, women for especially the road is a bigger challenge for women as opposed to a guy can just doesn't care. He can get in his car and drive to a city for one night and then be gone. Women definitely have more security issues that complicate road work. Is there anything to that? Because I've been thinking about that. I don't know which guy said it to me, but does that the opportunity because according to his theory, women need weekends at a place rather than doing like a Thursday night in Oshkosh or something. Is it
Okay.
is there something to that?
I don't drive. I mean, I will like rent a car every once in a blue moon. So I don't do a lot of those shows anyway, but I think like as a woman, I will say I'm kind of scared all the time. So like even like walking home late at night, I'm just so it doesn't really matter if I'm out in a town I don't know. I'm still the same amount of scared as I am, with like if my boyfriend's not home. So
Really?
I think, as a woman, you just do have to observe. Any woman who travels alone, you have to observe different rules, like never tell anyone where your hotel is. You always need to Google the reviews of your hotel before you go, just to make sure it's not like something that's unsafe. But I don't think that headlining on the road for women is really more of a challenge than just being a woman in general for
Okay,
stand up.
yeah, that makes sense. I've never been, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, no, that makes sense. But I try because before you came on, I was talking about people are always asking me about my list of favorite comedians, and they're almost always guys. Like, give me your top 10 comedians, and people will give you every one of them's a male, and they're
Mhm.
like, and they're oh well. There's a separate list for female comedians. I was like,
Mm,
no,
yeah.
comedians are comedians. And Emma Kay, who was on the program last week, she said she won an award for she came in second for best female comedian in New Jersey.
Uh,
I wouldn't even enter that contest. I would insist that it's just weird that in 2023 we're still segregated in
yeah.
comedy by
Yeah.
gender. It's so weird.
It is. Well, I mean, I think that everything is changing now. Like I said, the landscape is changing and there's a lot more diversity and there's inclusion, and that's great. But I do still think that certain groups like someone more who looks like what their idea of a comedian is.
Right.
So it's like somebody that looks like Jerry Seinfeld or somebody, like a skinny guy going up on stage, or to them they already see him as, oh, this guy's a comedian. Whereas maybe somebody who looks different from that, they're kind of already starting off in a hole where the crowd is like, oh my gosh, maybe like a woman in her 70s or something, just coming out on stage, and people think like, oh, I don't think I'm going to like this person, and maybe she's able to win them over. But there is definitely there's definitely a social element to it. I've had people, it's so funny to me, I've had people come up to me after I've performed and say, we did not think you were going to be funny at all, but we loved you. And I'm like, wow, that's why wouldn't you think that I would be funny? I kind of,
here's a backhanded compliment for
yeah,
you.
yeah. You don't seem like you would be funny at all. It's like, well, I mean, not to strangers. I'm not going up to people on the street like yucking it up. That just, that's unhinged. But
what about, because back 3 years ago, I wrote a piece about Erica Rhodes, and what I thought was really special about her was that she was not catering to what I saw a lot of female comics do at that time, were trying to be like the men, like trying to be out vulgar men, out, be out locker room men type of thing. I don't see it as much anymore. Maybe it's just that kind of was a passing thing. Maybe I'm just not noticing anymore. But I did feel like at some point, a lot of female comedians were coming out trying to be more male in their performance or just their demeanor and stuff. Was I wrong, or did that pass, or is it still a thing?
I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but I will say that like a late night comedy club crowd, maybe people, for example, who are tourists, who are not familiar with the art of stand-up, they're coming to a comedy club. There's something that's very exciting and titillating about hearing phrases that you wouldn't hear in polite conversation. So I think like a lot of you can come in, and if you're struggling with a crowd that maybe doesn't get your jokes or they don't get your unique perspective, they're going to get, your joke about, I don't know what I'm allowed to say on here, but they're going to get,
you're allowed to say anything you want.
well, they'll get, they're going to get your joke about ass eating, and just even by just saying ass eating and looking like me, you already are kind of, people are like, just, oh my God, I can't believe she said it. Like we have a mom talking about cunnilingus, so it's like, it's a shortcut to humor. And it is like a tactic that sometimes I think you kind of have to use, like, I think sometimes like men come to the stage and, they're able to get this kind of pass from the audience that whatever he thinks is brilliant and smart because he looks like a comedian and he looks like what we think a comedian looks like. And he can do jokes about chewing gum and tying his shoes and, oh, I fell down the steps. These type of jokes, the crowd can be really with him. And then a woman comes on and immediately she's in a hole. Right. So she's got to do what she needs to do to make sure she can keep working at the club. It's like, I can bomb talking about my linen closet, but not for that long because I will be out of work.
Yeah, right.
So it's like we've all had to, I think, kind of dig deep and ask somebody if they swallow.
Right. Well, my wife could handle a lot of stuff, but I don't think she's ready for ass eating jokes. And I have to test this out some night where I know a comic is doing that kind of material and take her. But when you just said the word, and I started to giggle because my generation, I'm a very old guy, and my generation, it wasn't a thing. Nobody, it's like it was invented sometime around 1995, I guess, or something, and all of a sudden it's like it's number one on the menu now. It's so weird.
And it's number one on your sex joke menu as well. It's a very popular topic.
Wow. So. But so you're not a stranger, you're not adverse to saying occasional profanity or any of that stuff, but you are capable of having a conversation without every other word, being an F-bomb or something. I find that a lot of comedians, and you'll see, they'll take their language from the street and they will go up there and generally not be able to get through a sentence without 2 or 3 F-bombs in it. And I think that, once you get conditioned to that, it loses its power. When you say it, in the middle of well, I'm not going to point out your material because you might still be using it. But if you say it in something that seems like just you're talking about a life situation that you're in, and then at the end you throw in an F-bomb, it becomes powerful.
Yes.
Words lose their power when you overuse them, and I
They
think,
do.
yeah,
They absolutely do. I worked a club. I remember this was years ago. It was a club in Indianapolis, and they would do an open mic there, and they would say, you cannot say the F word. You can say it 2 times in your 5-minute set, and then anything else it's way too much. And I love that. I love a classy style of stand up. I love, like the Vegas setting and nightclubs. And I love bringing a classy energy of people out on a Saturday night, living their best life and having a fun event. And I like to bring that type of energy. Of course, I like to do these like bar back rooms or whatever to practice and be casual, but I still like to bring that energy because I think that's kind of authentic to myself.
yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Now you have a podcast as well with Sarah. I can't pronounce Sarah's last name.
Talamash, yes. We
Talamash.
have a podcast. It's called Lady Journey, and it's for everyone. Everyone can be a lady. That's what we say on the show. And we're really excited. We have a lot of cool guests coming up. Sarah is in her 2nd trimester, so that's a journey that we will be going on.
Wow.
And we'd love people to listen. We have a Patreon. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts.
Is she your best bud? Is she, you're very close with her? I mean,
Yes.
obviously you're doing a podcast together. So I'm just curious about, are you going to be like aunt to her kid? I mean,
Oh, of course. Oh, I'll be right there.
so because you do talk about, not having children and the, I appreciate the freedom and and just the great lifestyle that can be, because a lot of people, they I think sometimes we should have children. If you're going to have children, you should have them later in life so you get to experience your youth. You blow your whole youth, running after little kids. Does it? Will that you?
Yeah.
Are you afraid that will change your attitude? You fall in love with this kid and think I'll have to have one now.
Well, I mean, I'm still very much on the fence about having kids, for myself. Like I might have a birthday coming up, so it's hard. I think it's really hard to be put in a position where you have to make a huge life choice. And last year I said to myself, I said, you know what, I'm going to take a year. I'm going to really carefully consider whether I want to have kids or not. And then at the end of the year, I will follow through with my plan. And then I immediately had a breakdown. I went to Taco Tuesday, had one too many margaritas, which is 3, and just started crying because I felt like, oh my God, the pressure. It's a huge amount of pressure that we're putting on ourselves to be like, either I'm going to live in regret or I'm going to be exhausted all of the time. So I'm in therapy now. I have a different therapist, and I am trying to move forward, loving my life and feeling abundant no matter what path I go down.
Well, I appreciate you being open about that. A lot of comedians are open, and actors are open about being in therapy. Musicians, generally not. They're very close to the vest about that stuff. But I think it's really important for anybody in the creative arts to be have some kind of therapy, some kind of outlet. You agree with that?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
think everybody should be in therapy at least a little bit, because we don't learn life skills in school. So it's really the only place you can go to learn about yourself and learn about how to cope with your triggers.
Right. Well, again, I do appreciate you being on the program this morning. I'm a big fan. I can't wait to get into New York City to see you live.
Oh.
I mean, I know I'm getting inundated with the reels, but 1 minute is just not enough. It's a tease. It's a tease, but
Yes.
I want to see the full show, and I look forward to that. And I appreciate you being here. I hope people will support you. KatieHannigan.com. You can find out about the podcast link right there, and wherever you're playing, performing. And right now, I mean, just those 3 clubs, or other stuff you want to mention before we say goodbye?
Well, I would love to mention I do actually have my full special available called Feeling of Emptiness. It is the special version of my album that's on YouTube. I'll be performing in Indianapolis August 11th. I will be performing in Raleigh, North Carolina, September 7th. And then you can check out my my Instagram, my website, everything else for my dates.
I
the rest of
might
the year.
I might see you in Raleigh before I see you in North Carolina. My brother lives in Raleigh, and I've been, he's an older guy, and he's kind of lonely. Anyway, I've been trying to get him to go to comedy shows down there. September 7th, he said. Let me see this. Yeah, I'm gonna go to that show.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait to meet you.
I can't
It's going to
wait.
be a fun weekend. I'll be headlining just the Thursday, but then I'll be opening for Dan Soder at Good Nights.
Oh, very
the
cool.
run,
Good
but-
Nights. That's what I was going to
Yeah.
say. That's the club that everybody goes to down there. That's the best one down there. Well, I do appreciate it again. I know I said thank you, but thank you again and again.
Thank you. I
been a
enjoyed
pleasure.
having coffee with the dog.
Thank you. We'll see you in Raleigh.
Okay.
Bye for now. Katie Hannigan, folks. Really, really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. I hope you appreciate that. In a few moments, Robert Taylor will be joining me. I'm going to play Coffee with the Dog commercial here so I can freshen up a bit. The coffee is a little bit better than it was the first round. But here you go. Oh, by the way, katiehannigan.com. Check that out. This episode is brought to you by Koa Coffee. If you are a coffee connoisseur and want to experience the best coffee Hawaii has to offer, no blends, no compromise, try the true taste of aloha. Koa Coffee produces premium Hawaiian coffee, hand-picked, expertly roasted, and delivered from Hawaii to your door with aloha. From award-winning 100% Kona coffee grown on the slopes of the Mauna Loa volcano to the unique mocha beans of Maui, they strive to provide their loyal customers with the best quality and freshness. Since 1997, Koa Coffee has been known far and wide as a product of utmost quality, and their awards prove it. Koa Coffee was featured in Forbes' Top 10 Coffees of the World. This is the coffee Forbes called the best coffee in America. Find out what it's all about. Go to minddogtv.com/coffee. minddogtv.com/coffee. Get your Koa coffee. It's the best coffee in the world, even when your wife puts poison in it in the morning. Oh, yeah. Katie Hannigan, you got to check her out. If you're not familiar with her, please do check out her work. I think you will enjoy it. Listen, have I ever steered you wrong when it comes to comedians? No. You can say, I'm not going to. Maybe I dug myself in a hole there. I have not. I just wanted to mention briefly before I bring Robert in that the hate mail from the Joe Rogan stuff. People saw the clip yesterday, and again, the traffic numbers on the clip don't seem to indicate that I would generate this much hate mail. But people are saying that I was guilty of the same thing that I was accusing Rogan of because I said I did not know what the solution to climate change was. And it's just baffling because I got at least 3 or 4 of these saying the same thing when I said, listen, I don't know basically enough to offer any kind of solutions. I don't even know that mankind is definitely, I suspect we are the major contributor, but I don't know that it's not cyclical. We've had ice ages, we've had hot periods on Earth. I don't know. And I'm not a scientist, but I leave it up to those people. And that's what I said. I didn't say that because what Rogan did, he flat out claimed that somebody, Greta Thunberg, had predicted that the oceans would be boiling and we'd all be dead now. That was a direct lie, a complete fabrication. That is very different than me saying, I'm no expert in this. I have my beliefs and my opinions about it, but I'm not an expert in it. I do believe climate change is absolutely real. I think it's observable reality. But what the solutions are and whether we can actually execute solutions is something I was questioning. That's not the same as saying, well, so-and-so made this prediction and it hasn't come true. And the prediction was never made. It was completely fabricated. She didn't say it. James Anderson said something similar to that, but not that. and with a completely different meaning. So it was a complete fabrication. So if you're going to write back to me now today, make sure you address that part of it. I got to play Robert's theme song. I can't let him in without playing this theme song. Where is this theme song? Here it is. And thank you for your service, sir. How are you?
Hey, man.
So you sent me that clip yesterday, the Rogan and Segura thing. I'm just like, I can't. It was just what the, and the takeaway from me, well, not all the crap that they were saying, was just like, what's the value in this? Why do people find this valuable? What value does this offer anybody's life, to seeing two guys who don't know what they're talking about talk about what they don't know about for 2.5 hours? Do you have any any guess to what value people might be getting from something like that?
I don't know, man. Apparently, well, you know what, too? Like, I'll listen to, if I'm on the road going somewhere, I'll load up a couple podcasts and listen to them. And I like listening to Rogan when he's interviewing someone, that I want to hear what they have to say or whatever. He does some good interviews, but I swear to God, man, I was listening to one last week. I can't remember who was on there, and it almost never fails that about halfway through, I don't care who he's talking to. He can talk to a scientist. He can be talking to a comedian. He can be talking to a guy on the street. But at some point, every show turns into the same thing. He starts talking about the conspiracy theories and how the government lied to everyone about the vaccine. And then some of these people are sitting there like, they don't want to go there and you can tell they're like trying to shy away from the topic a little bit on the interviews and stuff. But he's got to fill his podcasts go for 2 or 3 hours, so he's got to fill time on there. And I guess
that's what he knows. That's what he knows.
He just goes with whatever he can get them talking about or whatever.
I felt like Segura. I'm obviously reading way too much into this, but I'm looking at Tom Segura and I'm thinking, in the back of his mind, he's saying, "I'm not going to do this again."
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell the headline of the short is "France is collapsing," right? And he says, "Man, have you seen what's going on in France?" He said, "The places they're rioting, they're burning the place down." And Segura's like, "What? I was just over there. What are you talking about?" And he says, "Yeah, they murdered some kid." He literally says that in the thing. He says they murdered this kid.
Right.
And then Segura's like, "What? What do you mean?" And then like a couple seconds later, what Rogan says, "Well, I'm not sure exactly what happened."
And then he read the article and he still wasn't sure.
But he didn't read it. He sped read it or whatever you want to call it and skipped over things. And he kept jumping to this and this and this. But it starts off and says that the cops stopped someone for speeding, whatever they stopped him for. And the cop was leaning in the car and the guy took off and then it was a chase.
Right.
And the thing but the one thing I always say is, from traveling over there and spending time over there, is that as Americans, we tend to think that the world revolves around what we do. Like everyone adheres to the same laws that we have over here and stuff when they don't.
Right.
So you have to put things in perspective of how cops react in France as to how cops react in the U.S. They don't have the same policies and procedures over there that we have, and that citizens don't have the same laws. They're not required to do the same thing we are here, or they might have. Actually, be honest, my experiences is that the citizens over there have way less freedoms than we have here when it comes to responding to law enforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things, and it's funny you should talk about the United States, the American perspective on the world, because Vinny Manelli was in Manhattan, Times Square, doing a man on the street piece that I'm editing I'll probably debut it on Monday because it's a lot of editing that's going into this thing. But he's getting the Canadian American, getting a gauge of Canadian American relations and all this stuff. And he's interviewing Americans and asking them about Canada. Americans know nothing
We
about
don't know
Canada.
anything. We don't know anything.
But he's also interviewing Canadians about America, and Canadians know everything about America.
We don't know anything about anybody else but us.
Right.
We don't care about anybody else but us. The world revolves around us. It's, like if you see the tidal wave hits Fukushima and the nuclear plant disaster, all that, the first thing we're worried about is how's that going to affect us? How are the people over there? Do they need help? Or anything? It's like, is that going to screw our water up? It's like, we don't care.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because he's even asking about he has a couple of women from California about the Canadian national anthem, and then one said she knew it and she started singing the British national anthem, God Save the Queen. So it's funny. I mean, people we don't know are even our neighbors to the north, so how could we be expected to know anything about Europe if we don't even know our own neighbors right directly to the north? One of the things, and I'm not going to, maybe I shouldn't say it. I was compelled to, so I'm going to say it. Canada. They drink milk from a plastic bag.
I was for 3 summers before COVID. I was in Switzerland, and they had the milk isn't in a refrigerator either. They keep it on the shelf, and the eggs too. The eggs aren't refrigerated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you think in Canada maybe it's so cold. I always think it's so. Right now it's hot as hell up there. But I when we think of Canada, I always just think it's too cold for me. So I was just thinking maybe. Because when I went to school in Brockport, New York, I was only 1 semester there, but it snowed every day, and I didn't need to get a refrigerator because I was on the third floor of a building, but it snowed over the entire building. All I had to do was open my window and put this stuff out the window because I had a snowbank.
What drives me crazy? When I was over there was I run in American tourists would come over there, and we think we have a bad rap overseas or whatever. But why would you pay all that money to travel, fly that far, pay for hotels, this, and then not want to embrace the local culture? You're like, what do you mean they don't have Coke here? I'm telling you, man, I saw a couple go off in a restaurant because the restaurant didn't have Coke. They only had, I don't know if they had Pepsi, but whatever. They're like, what do you mean you don't have that? Everybody has Coke. So why would you travel all that way if all you want to do is do the same thing that you did at home?
That's true. But I will say any place in Vietnam, you can get Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
It's available everywhere. Yes, you also sent me a couple of days ago the Rick Beato, Christopher Cross video. Now, I want to talk to you about that because, first of all, he's telling stories in there and I know they're true, or I believe they're true. He's telling them, and I don't have any reason to doubt him. But he's telling stories that if a guy in a bar were telling you that story, it would be like, this is total bullshit.
Yeah, they were incredible. But the people that he's talking about are still alive. Most of them, like Jimmy Page, and they could.
Richie Blackmore, I can talk to. He used to run an open mic here before COVID. He used to run an open mic just about 20 minutes, not even 20, 15 minutes from my house. And the only rule he had there was no smoke on the water. Nobody plays smoke on the water on his open mic. But the idea that he subbed for Richie Blackmore on their Deep Purple's very first American gig. You know what? I never knew Christopher Cross as a
great guitarist.
Right. I just knew him as a singer and songwriter. And I remember when he first made it, quote unquote made it, he was doing Tom Snyder on the Tomorrow Show, an interview, and he was talking about being 30 years old before he actually made it. That was unheard of before. He was like the first guy, because if you're going to make it as a rock star, you do it as in your teens or 20s.
Yeah.
And but so I never at that time I was just thinking of him as like acoustic guitarist, singer, songwriter, and then I'm finding out he's this total gearhead and electric guitar player, soloist, and that's him playing on Ride Like the Wind, the solo on that, which is a
Yeah.
killer solo.
Well, that's what like I mess around with the guitar. I'm no musician, but even I was, I could tell that Rick Beato knew that he knew what he was talking about. When he was talking about, because at first he caught me off guard. I realized it took me a couple seconds to realize he was talking about the gauge on the guitar strings. Rick says, "You're a 10. Are you a 10 guy or a 12 guy or an 8?" I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? What is he talking about? And then he starts talking about his finger. I said, "Oh, he's talking about the strings."
Right.
But Rick guessed what he was talking about. But then he talks about when Jimmy Page's roadie built him that amplifier. I think that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Amplifier that you couldn't buy. It was a custom amp, and then shipped it to him. That's unheard of, man. Anything like that now.
And now this was a cool thing that he was saying, that I wish we would have had this when I was a young man, that if a band came to town, it was a law in Texas that they had to have a local band on the bill with them for 30 minutes.
30 minutes, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that would have changed my life, because we struggled to get opening dates for and it was always highly competitive, of course, but just to get on the opening slot for a major band was just like, it was heaven. It was what we all wanted to do. If there was a law that said we had to do it, I think my life would have had a different trajectory. I really do.
Texas was probably the only place that had that law too, if you think about it.
So for people who don't know what we're talking about, Christopher Cross, his first original band, opened up for Led Zeppelin in Texas 7 times. Yeah. Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, it's crazy because too, man. I like the way Rick Beato will separate the tracks, where you can only hear the bass, you can only hear the drums, you can only hear the vocals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm no musician, but when he kind of breaks the music theory down where you can understand, a layman can understand what he's talking about. Because there's things like, we were talking about the 12-string guitar and stuff before. And when I go to the guitar store, I'll mess around with it. I won't buy it because I don't think I can play it well enough. But I can't. I was always like, God, why do I love that sound of that 12-string guitar? And then I was watching one show, and Rick Beato's explaining the difference of the octaves and the strings and stuff like that, and why it differentiates itself and stuff like that. That's why that Bon Jovi video, I thought it was a 12-string guitar.
Right.
Just from the sound on
it. I'm convinced there's some bullshittery going on with that video, because there's definitely, even with my deaf head, there is definitely a 12-string sound there. Whether I think there was a modeling guitar. One of those guitars was a modeling guitar, probably Sam Bora's guitar that he's playing. But they were both 6 strings. But it definitely, it was some kind of bullshittery going on, because it was the sound of a 12-string. Absolutely.
You know what I thought was the craziest story that Christopher Cross told was how they came to that string intro in Sailing. Did you hear that story?
Yeah.
Where he said it was by accident that they had the strings on a separate track, and they had the guitar, his intro guitar with the acoustic, and it didn't sync up right, and they were sitting there in the studio, and when they hit the thing, the strings started early, accidentally. They started early accidentally, and then the guitar came in, and they're like, "Wait a minute, we got to redo it or whatever." And the guy's like, "No, we're going to leave it like that."
Yeah. Good. Yeah, absolutely good stuff. Some of the best things in recorded history happened by accident. Not all of them. I mean, some, obviously there was a lot of intentional artistry going on with recording arts and all that stuff. But there are a lot of cool stories in the history of recorded music that, include accidents, or, Bob Ross would call them happy accidents, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, amazing. And Eric Johnson stuff. And the fact that he would, one of the things that they talked about, which wouldn't make a difference anymore, but how you got radio airplay, how important it was to have name studio musicians on your album in the liner notes so that the DJs would take notice of that
Yeah.
and play it. And I think that's how he became a hit at 30 years old, which is old. It was an old man then in music, but that's how he broke through. It's just by having all those great players. But to find out that he grew up with Eric Johnson and was friends with, it's just like all these guys who were super successful seem to have had childhoods that were linked to other super successful people, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
coincidence or what? I don't know what to make of that.
It was almost, well, actually, it was even more weird than that whole Laurel Canyon thing out in LA back in the 60s.
Right.
'Cause they didn't grow up together. Well, some of them might have. They got together, but he was like childhood friends
Right.
with those kids. But you know what? I couldn't believe, man. I was sitting there watching the video or whatever, and then I Googled on his Wikipedia for something while I was watching. I couldn't believe he was 72 years old, man. He doesn't look 72 years old.
No, he doesn't look 72 years old, but I definitely believe that because I go back to that Tom Schneider interview. I was in my early 20s and he was talking about being 30. So I knew he was definitely that much older than me. I'm maybe 21 at the time when I saw that interview. And but it still sticks. I can see that interview happening right now, and as clear as day in my mind. Those Tom Schneider, one of the forgotten guys, and he was a goofy old bastard. And Dan Aykroyd did him well on Saturday Night Live with his. But some of the best interviews ever on late night television. And when I first started doing a podcast, I was compared to him being an older guy and all, and then having a old man perspective with some young musicians that I was interview. But I took that as a compliment, even though it was probably meant to be an insult of some kind. Like
I'll still watch I think it's called Me TV or something. It's one of those side peripheral channels. I don't have cable, but you can pick it up with rabbit ears. And I still watch. It comes on every night. Dick Cavett. Cavett. Yeah, and I tell you what, I'm watching some of those interviews from like the 60s and the 70s of Groucho Marx and or musicians and stuff like that. But it's funny, especially when you said Tom Snyder, I remember because he always had that cigarette in his hand. It's like, but even on Dick Cavett, these stars will come over and they're lighting up cigarettes and just blowing smoke in everybody's face. And
yeah, all those old television stuff where people are always lighting up cigarettes all the time. It's kind of funny to see. People do it on podcasts now, but you don't see that on television ever. Nobody's ever smoking on television. I remember John Mellencamp on Letterman. After he had his heart attack, came out and he went to light up a cigarette, and Letterman just looked at because it wasn't allowed. He was breaking a lot. I mean, fire codes in New York City. Like, you're not allowed to do that here. And like, what are you going to do? Kick me off? I'm your guest here. I mean, you can't just kick your guest off. So he's at and like smoked but yeah, you don't see that anymore. And that's sometimes it's a little refreshing to see some of that stuff where guys are just being themselves. The other part of those things is, and I was thinking about this the other day, I might want to do this in the future. You have a guest on and you just slide down the couch when the next guest comes on and still be part of the conversation. I think that's a cool thing. I don't know how I would make that work in this remote kind of way, but I would, if I start doing actual live in studio stuff, that might be something, a way to go. Like, bring out one guest at a time and slide down the couch, and we'll bring in the next guy.
You could do that. You could do that almost like we did that thing with JP on Monday.
Yeah.
Put multiple screens on there.
Yeah, but it's not on a couch, and you didn't have to slide down. I just slid you over.
Yeah,
I just slid you over like this. Oh, I can't do that. Yeah. Oh, look at that.
Do it like the Brady Bunch, man.
Yeah. Well, during the Podathon, we had that going on. I think we had 10 people on at a time.
Really?
A couple of times, yeah. So that was pretty interesting. Anyway, this North Carolina thing in Raleigh Katie's going to be there on September 7th. Any chance you can make that? We get to hang with you.
If you go over there, I'll go watch the show at very least.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool, man. It would be good to hang with you. I mean, I know you're probably several hours away from. How far are you from Raleigh?
It's about 3 hours. My brother lives there. Actually, on September 7th, I'm actually performing in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is like
Oh,
an
wow.
hour. It's like an hour from there. So
Oh,
if I go up early enough, I could just drive over there probably.
wow. I wish I would have known that because you know what? I would buy my brother tickets to that one, right?
I'm actually doing September 7th and 9th. The 7th is on a Thursday, I think, or something.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
September
They're having
7th.
the North Carolina Comedy Festival in Greenville.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what that is. But they'll probably put me up early. I can just drive over there. They'll probably have two shows if it's Dan Soder at Good Nights. They'll probably do like a 7 and a 9 or 7:30 and a 9:30 or something like that.
Right. The news of the day yesterday. I just wanted to get your take on this. Now, cocaine was found in a uh, tourist storage tubby at the where they give you the tours of the White House. And, of course, the news was making a big deal of this, but the Secret Service or some law enforcement guy said it's unlikely the culprit will ever be found. I mean, could you pick out a cokehead? If I gave you a list of people and you could like look up their history and see about them, how hard would it be to figure out at least top 5 suspects, and then you go have a conversation with them and you find out how hard could it be to
Yeah,
actually get them?
I was reading that story last night. It's actually it wasn't the general tour thing. It was in the West Wing. It's where only the people that work there can bring friends or family in. That's who. So
Oh, that
so it's
changes
not.
it.
It wasn't regular tour. So they can narrow it down to like a cubby hole where you put your purse or you put your phone and stuff like that. The people who work there don't have to put their stuff there. It's the guests who have to leave there.
So that's a much smaller number to narrow it down.
So they can narrow it down to an even smaller pool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? Some people who are, I don't know, I want to say on the left, but they're not really on the left. They're just anti-Trump people, and because it's the Trump people who are like, this is really important. They're trying to protect Biden in this, like saying it's not an important story. But I think as long as they're saying we can't identify who it is, it feels like they're covering something up. I think it's important to just say who the person is. No, I'm not. It should be a major prosecution or anything. I mean, coke is
Well,
what it
yeah.
is.
Well,
It's a possession thing.
well, the thing is too, because I saw someone I know on my Facebook thing posted something like, "Yeah, you know it was Hunter Biden or something like that," and I'm sitting there thinking, read the article. First of all, they don't have to go. The president's kids or relatives or actually the staff, his immediate staff, they don't have to go through that thing. They're not,
Right.
and they don't have to leave their stuff in the cubby hole. If you read the story, so it wasn't somebody on the staff or whatever. It was someone they brought in that came in with someone who worked there, or whatever, and they could probably find out who it is. But that means someone's head's going to roll if they
I
do it.
do think it's important to find out who it is,
Yeah.
only because if not, then it's going to be a conspiracy theory. And my conspiracy theory will be this: if we have to have a conspiracy theory, I'm going to put one out there that Donald Trump, trying to make Biden look bad, had somebody go there. He bought it for them and told them, "Yeah, go bring him, leave the cocaine there, and we'll tell him it was Biden's." That's that's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah, man, I'm
Take
telling
that.
you, I'm so, and this stuff's only gearing up because we got another year until the election. I'm so sick of this crap. Honestly, we need to just clean house, man, and just of everybody. And
Well, I don't disagree with you, but what does that really mean? I mean, we can't just you can't just start America over again, can you?
no, I mean, we need some fresh faces. We need some. I mean, fresh Republicans, fresh Democrats, fresh Libertarian. We need a fresh crop coming in, who has skin in the game in
Yeah,
the future. Who has future skin in the game? These
right.
guys in here now aren't worried about the future. They're probably not going to live to the next year to the election. Who knows, man? But
Oh yeah.
we need people in there who have kids that are going to be in the game, and they're thinking about their kids' future, and they're thinking about down the line a little bit, because that's not the case now, man. I
How
don't
cool would it be if I actually won this congressional race that I mean, and you see like me on CNN just cursing these fuckers out and getting in all, or getting censored and thrown thrown out of Congress for just calling them all a bunch of fucking corrupt bastards, and
But you know,
dragging me out.
I used to tell people all the time, because all they do is, even at the local races, all they do is they just try to find dirt on you. I said, hey, if I ran for anything, I don't care what it was, I'd take out a whole page ad in the newspaper, right? And I'd list everything I ever did that anyone could hold against me. I mean, everything, and just say, hey, vote for me. This is what I did, and then they couldn't find anything on me. And then they'd either vote for me or not vote for me,
I'm doing the same thing. And listen, a lot of my stuff is already out in this podcast. They could go back and listen to. I talk about things I've done that were illegal that I never got caught for. I've never been arrested, but I'm the product of a criminal family. My father was a bookmaker racketeer, and my mother got arrested with him because she was taking phone calls and bets for him. And this is my life story. I ran away from home when my parents were in jail. Came home from 9th grade, and both my parents were in federal custody. So I mean, all my secrets are out there. So yeah, I have lots of skeletons in my closet. I'm not a good dude, but at least I will, hold their feet to the fire and just go to Congress and say, you're not working for the people. You're working to get reelected. You're working for special interests. You're not working for the people who elected you, and that's what you were elected for. So get to work. And that would be very unpopular. Somebody said I would get killed if I run on that platform. That would be a good thing to have on my tombstone. When the guy who got killed for calling out corruption in Washington.
Yeah, maybe they'll put a statue up of you or whatever in Long Island.
Yeah.
You should.
Anything of note in going on in the comedy world that you piqued your interest lately? Anything that you've seen or any of that kind of stuff, videos or stuff that you've been learning from?
I don't know, man. It's like a lot of tours cranking up again here for late summer and fall, with a lot of new specials about to drop. I know we'll bring it back full circle again. I saw something yesterday or the day before. They're saying, "Oh man, I forgot who it is. It's got a special coming out. Mark Norman's got one coming out, I think, in September." But then somehow or another, it was on one of those Rogan basher. Now there's even people making a living off making videos about bashing Rogan on there now, or whatever.
Not just Rogan, every single podcaster.
But they're saying that that should Rogan release his on YouTube or try to put it on one of the bigger things or whatever like that, because everybody's making their specials, even Mark Norman, and they're trying to shop them around. But nobody's really buying them. Like they used to give you the big money for Netflix, but they're not doing that anymore unless you got to be like astronomically.
Segura's on Netflix, right? The Sledgehammer thing that he just got.
He's got to deal with them. He's got to deal with them for so many specials. Like so did Chappelle, and maybe God, I can't even remember off the top of my head now. But maybe Burt Kreischer too. I don't know. But a few of them had deals up front. I think Ricky Gervais did too, where they had to do so many within a certain amount of years and pump them out. And that's why they're pumping them out one a year to fulfill their contract. But a lot of these guys are going the YouTube route, because if you've got a really good special and you can market it out there, you can make more money on YouTube.
Can you? I don't think so, man. You'd have to get, even if you get 100 million views. What is that? That's $600,000. 100 million views.
They're not. Yeah, that's a lot of views. Well, I think Mark Norman's got it's like some ridiculous number on that special he put out a couple years ago on YouTube. Like, I don't want to Joe Rogan it and throw some figure out there that I don't know for a fact.
Yeah.
He's got a lot. But you know what? They could do like Louis C.K., man, and put it on their website and make you pay $10 for it.
Yeah. Well, and there's only because people only have so much disposable cash. I mean, you can't patronize or support everyone that you like, especially if you're a big fan of the art form. Because, like I was saying to Katie, if somebody asked me top 10 comedians, I can't do it because I've lived too many people out. I have to go.
It'll change every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see something on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like there's even more people coming out with podcasts too, man. It's just saturated. It's just oversaturated. You can't. You don't have disposable income. You don't have disposable time where you can. Honestly, I used to have like 2 or 3 podcasts I check out every week on here and stuff like that. Now, freaking every time I click on one, I'm like, oh wait, what's this one over here? Let me go check this one. And now I got to pick and choose between which podcast I'm going to watch because I only have enough time to watch podcasts. I think Ice Cube must be having something coming out because he was on Rogan last week. He's on Bill Maher's podcast this week. 3 or 4 things I've seen him on. So I know Ice Cube pretty well now after this past week or so. Maybe he's got a movie coming out, some comedy or whatever. But honestly, man, I was trying to focus on writing and stuff like that. I don't think I'm getting into the Boston and the Detroit side.
You don't think so?
Nah, if I do, it'll be a last minute thing. And they tend to just pick people from the local area that can drive over there.
Wow.
They'll show up or whatever. So
it's kind of disappointing if you don't make Boston because I was kind of hoping you would just Boston is the place, man. I mean, when you talk about comedy, and we talked about New York City with Katie before. New York is a definite different vibe than LA, but I think Boston is. I don't know. It's kind of like it's the gold star of.
Yeah. It's like LA, Boston, New York. The thing about it is the way the World Series works is that you send in an initial video and they go grade all the videos and they rank it by your score and stuff like that. And then when you apply for the satellites, they base it on that score. Okay. So you can resubmit and then you can ask for feedback and they'll give you all this feedback and you can resubmit a video one time. Well, the video I sent in was like from a year and a half ago. It was like I'm standing on a piece of just not as big as a coffee table. The stage wasn't literally. I had to move the mic stand because I thought I was going to fall off. But I had a good set. But it was just the video quality and stuff. So when they gave me my feedback, I did another show. I had just done another show where actually I had corrected most of the stuff that they recommended anyway. So I sent that video, and I was like, oh, can I get feedback on that? And Joe messaged me back. He said, we can only give you feedback on the first video because we got so many people or whatever. We wouldn't be able to do it. But he said, I'll tell you, you scored significantly higher on that second video. Right. So I guess they used the second video score.
That's weird because I was just going to ask you, does the video even matter? Because they've seen you. It's the same people.
No, that's what I'm getting to. Okay. So then about a month or so later, I started getting picked for those satellites. And like I had that, they saw me 3 times, right? They saw me 3 times. And I messaged Jason one time. I said, hey man, when you pick for the remaining satellites in Vegas, do you take into account my performance that you see and stuff like that? He said, no, we have to go by your video score. So they don't even take that into account.
Wow, that's
and I had a way better set in Texas, and I've got the video should be here in another week or 2, but I can't send in another video this year, so I have to wait until the end of this cycle to Vegas still, and then when they do it for next year, I can use the newer video for that. So they don't even, so I'm still working on an older video, and they see me 3. And here's the thing. Some of those people that I was in the show with probably had better videos than I did. So they were ranked higher, and I got put in at the last minute because of cancellation. But I made it out of one of the rounds ahead of some of those people that probably had better videos than I did.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I mean, I understand why they do that, because if you start changing things in the middle of it, then you got to deal. You have 100,000 people email and say, "Wait a minute, you got to do." So you got to like stick to whatever the rule is at the beginning. And I think
Yeah, I
I
get it.
respect that. I respect that, but I'm having to play by that rule. So all I can do is just sit back. There's nothing I can do to change it other than for Vegas, I get those extra points onto my video score for Vegas, but I just got, you just have to sit back, and it's like there's nothing you can do. That doesn't matter how great of a set I have at one of those live shows and they see it. It doesn't matter because they only go by the video score.
I don't like it. I mean, I'm not. It's not my really. I'm not complaining about, but I don't like the idea of judging people off video, because video can be doctored. Even listen, you can't change the jokes you're saying, but you can add canned laughter in to make it seem like the response was all. You can make it seem better than it was in a lot of different ways with video. Video can lie to you,
Yeah.
where you
Well,
see it with your own two eyes right in front of your face. You know what the reality is, or you should.
also too, the initial video I sent them was from March of 2022. Okay,
Yeah.
that was a year ago, and half the material in there is I've even bumped up where it's much funnier, or I gotten rid of, or whatever. So I was kind of behind the 8 ball, but then I had a newer video that I sent, and like I said, I don't, the rules are the rules. I'm playing by the rules, but it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of frustrating when you go to one of those shows, and you had a really good set, but you're thinking, but that's not going to help me get into the next satellite, and it's not going to help me because I see some of the people who are getting into the satellites, and I'm like, yeah, they were in that show with me when I moved on to the next round.
Wow.
It's
Billy
but
Bard's made a comment here.
but they had a better initial video. That's
He said Ice Cube is having Hollywood elite trouble. He's not being part of the club. Hollywood elite trouble. I guess I'm having Hollywood elite trouble too. I'm not part of the club.
Yeah, he's got the money though. He doesn't have to worry about being in the club.
Yeah, right. Yeah, who cares about the fucking club?
Yeah, I'm the one who has to worry about getting in the club.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like, what difference? Who gives a fuck what I don't know who even the Hollywood elite people are anymore? Like Adam Sandler is one of the top grossing box office guy, one of the richest and most successful comedians at all. He's not considered Hollywood elite, and
He
who the
doesn't
fuck
need
cares
him.
what the Hollywood elite?
He doesn't need him. He's got so much money.
He don't need him.
He produces his own movie. Louis C.K. produces his own stuff. They don't need Hollywood anymore. They don't need the studios because they sell their stuff on their websites if they want to. They can stream their movies and sell it to someone else.
Yeah.
You don't need that. Once you get power, man, like you said before earlier on, Hollywood isn't Hollywood anymore.
Right.
It's everywhere. They're making movies here on the coast in South Carolina. They're making them in North Carolina and Wilmington over there. They got studios over there now, man. It's like
right. And
you don't be in Hollywood.
Here's the weird, and because it sounds like I'm being a hypocrite here, because I've talked to young comedians who are in the game for a short period of time, and I tell them don't, because they're all thinking I'm gonna do a 30-minute special and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, no, you don't want to do that. Wait until you got an hour of killer material before, and make it special. Don't just go out there and do your club stand-up act and call that a special. If you're going to do a special, make it a show. So my friend who has this mansion with the speakeasy in it, I thought, wow, what a great place for a comedy special. And my first thought was, I'll find somebody I know who really, comedian who has a killer hour. I will book them for this thing. I will get, I will bring the crowd. I'll do the filming and all this stuff, and maybe make a deal with, for some of the profits on this. I'm thinking as an entrepreneur, and I will get it placed on probably Amazon, which is the easiest one, to be whatever. I don't, Netflix is out of the question. Showtime's out of the question for a guy like me. But that where I was thinking, and then I thought, fuck that. I could do a my own comedy special now, and having never, well, I shouldn't say never, haven't not done stand-up comedy in 35 years and only done it 3 times and sucked at it. I could get up there and do it, but with my video technique and my production technique, I can make it seem like a really compelling half-hour or hour show that would fool people, and I could put it on the internet, kind of like a prank, pranking the internet on my comedy special. And I thought, well, that would be really a fun thing to do. Like,
Funny, man, if I had that basement at my house, I'd be putting on shows every night.
yeah,
That's the place to sweet. But talking about, you're saying, you want to try to work and have this whole hour of killer material or whatever like that. And that's one reason that I'm glad I did the World Series. I think, let me go to Vegas, I'll go to Vegas. But that was part of the reason I got in there, was because of the feedback. I knew I was going to get when they sent me the initial feedback on that video. I was like, oh man, this is pretty good. I want to. It shortens the learning curve. I mean, I got this material, and I don't have enough opportunities around here for stage time, even when I'm driving or whatever like that. But that's kind of a shortcut for me to edit that material, because I get on stage in front of those guys, even if it's only 5 minutes. They're giving me all this